What's up, guys? Welcome to the Lore Reloaded. I am your wondrous and always thankful host, Lore Reloaded. If you're watching this video on demand, you know generally how this works. I'm going to throw a couple of things out at you, and then we're just going to get into it. But I'm not going to throw as much as I usually do. I'm just going to remind you guys to check us out at twitter.com/Lore Reloaded, as well as twitter.com/ what is it, Trekyards, Commander Cockings? It's Trekyards, right?
Trekyards with no separate Y.
Trekyards.
One capital only.
One capital only. You can check them out at twitter.com, Trekyards, with one capital only, as he stated. Hey, let me tell you, today we have a meeting of the Titans. We have, of course, Lore Reloaded, the TMZ of YouTube, and then the best Trek channel that exists is Trekyards. So if you're thinking this is probably the best day of your life, you're right. There's nowhere else you can go from here. But if this is your first watching, then just enjoy it. Just enjoy what's happening. As I said, I got Commander Cockings with me. How are you doing today, Commander Cockings? Having a good day?
Yeah, it's 5 p.m. I'm in the future. It's going well so far. Sunny.
Sweet, yeah. That's why I call it lore in the past, because generally people we talk to are on the other side of the globe. We, of course, got Captain Foley, who is in a similar time to me. Captain Foley, how you doing, good sir?
Very well, sir. We've had a very productive day so far. I'm looking forward to more with you. And I'm only an hour in the future.
Ah, so there we go.
Compared to you.
It's closer. If there's any events, we can warn each other. I got a better time away.
How's it feels to get to now outrank 2 people in one live stream?
Right. Exactly. So today, what we're going to be discussing is, and this, so I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. A lot of people, not a lot, some people get somewhat frustrated because of how much I enjoy Eagle Moss, for a couple of reasons. Honestly, I've partnered with them. It's more they help me out when it comes to research and things like that. And of course, Commander Cockings is about to show you all the stuff that he got. He absolutely loves them as well.
Collector for the entire run of the collection.
So
I could literally not stop. It's pretty continuous.
Today has been brought to you by Eagle Moss because they did something that I thought was cool. I love the company. They sent us a 2009 Warbird, as you can, and you see him flying by with Commander Cockings, 2009 Warbird, and just ask us to give our opinions on it. So I thought it would be fun to take a look at how the JJ verse handled the ships versus Discovery. And we're going to also be doing something on their channel, which is really, really cool, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, I'm just going to show it to you once, and it's going to be coming up on your screen right now. This is the 2009 Klingon Battle Cruiser, the quote-unquote special edition, the one we're going to be talking about. We'll show it to you as well. But I'm going to put it out there, and then I'll just be interested what your guys' are. Now, you guys have seen the show when I'm live. It's really, we're just laid back doing what we want to do, right? Here's my opinion. JJ Verse gets a lot of hate because it's not Prime, because it's not the nostalgia that what people liked in Trek. But I will say this, and I've never had a real complete disdain for JJ Verse like a lot of people have. It felt like, even though JJ Verse was in an alternate timeline, they really attempted to stay close to what they were working with. And I think there's no better example of that than the Klingon ship we have here versus like the Klingon Warbird, because they never called it D7. Commander Cockings really educated me on that before we went live. But if you look at that...
It's a weird one.
Yeah.
It's a weird, deliberate script choice. It's like, okay, wow.
Right. And it's funny because Discovery's in the Prime timeline, whereas JJ Verse is admittedly not. And I think that that's just an interesting discussion when you take a look at the two different. And I'll add one more thing, and then I'll hit it out to you guys because I'm curious your thoughts on it. I'll give Discovery one thing. Trek always has tried to push the envelope to do something new, I think, in some of their series, at least in my opinion. If you guys disagree, you can let me know. So I think if we're going to give them credit, we could give Discovery credit for trying something new. But I'd be curious, what are you guys' thoughts on the two different styles, the two ways they did it, and just the ships compared to each other?
Well, I'll go first, I guess. The 2009 Warbird, this thing here, is fantastic. I simply love this design, and I'm not a JJ lover at all. A lot of his ship aesthetics, they're just wrong. This one's done perfectly fine. This is excellent. So I agree with you that it's, this one at least is really well done. As for Discovery, don't tell us that it's going to be prime timeline, prime canon, and then say, here's a Klingon ship that looks nothing like any other Klingon ship we've ever seen, and call it a D7.
Whatever we'll see.
Yeah.
It's a timeline.
It just, tell us it's something new. Tell us it's a visual reboot. They're reimagining the Klingons. I have no problem with that. Something that looks alien than something that, we're used to, which is fine. I mean, it's an alien race, an alien culture. They're going to design things differently. So I like that idea. And yes, if they were pushing a new Star Trek series on us that was something new and totally unique, or went up front and said this is a reimagining, no issues at all with what they've done. Considering that they say it's prime timeline and it just belongs where, in an era that we know ish. I know we've never really seen 10 years before, but it just doesn't work for me. So that's where I stand on it. But yes, I do appreciate the 2009 ship that was seen for maybe half a second on screen.
With the gears in front and behind and explosions and
Yes.
It's amazing that hindsight, going back and looking at different teams, different times, different eras. 09 was only a couple of years after Enterprise, and it was being worked on earlier because they had to do production designs. And clearly the prerogative, the direction was, let's make a modern TOS. But because it's alternate universe, we can move and change things. But the only way to really do a Klingon battlecruiser of the time is to use the same shape and just update it, add more details, Katingrify it a bit, and make it a bit different, which is what I did. And it's very faithful. It's a very neat version, and it would have been cool to see. Hopefully, if they do Star Trek 4, it's announced. It's been announced for years. Announced doesn't mean much right now. If they do one, hopefully they'll factor in some way. They can do a Klingon War on two fronts, maybe do it better. But the shape is so iconic and so easy that doing something new is also easy, but it has to relate to the old. Now, Discovery has thrown the Klingon rulebook out the window. It's thrown the Bible, the show Bible, out the window, and wrote a new Bible to say alien with racist sort of honor, but not really. It's the classic. If we weren't told they were Klingons, we wouldn't think anything they did was Klingon. Their ships or their makeup or whatever, it could be easy. They're more Xindi, reptilian than Klingon sometimes. And so the D7, it's I think they're sort of pulled away from that a bit, because in other mediums it's been called like the Shet class or something. I think that's which one it is, and not calling it a D7. Now obviously a D7 was a human classification for that ship. They called it Katinga and battlecruiser and whatever. And so the argument could easily be that the computer misremembered misquantified it as a D7 whatever. But it's one of those things that as I think me and Stuart, and I'm sure you as well, Mr. Law, were watching live the Cruiser D7, and we're like so excited, and this thing shows up, and it's like, don't reference it if you're not going to do it properly. You earned a point for a second, then you actually lost 10 points. If they'd called it B7 or J7, would have been it's another one of the sevens. You got the D7s, and that would have been cool. But to call it something that it obviously isn't, you lose points. Especially when the D7 is so obviously canon, and it's a design that's stayed around for the next, hundreds of years or 100 years. So it's hindsight of, well, that makes sense, versus this is just a new design which they accidentally called a D7 in voiceover of a computer that was obviously filmed after the fact. Right. They really shouldn't have done.
Well, here's my thing, and we may. I know you guys are talking generally. Not you guys. I know everyone's typing in the chat and things like that. We may actually be responding to you guys in a little bit, but I wanted to have a more discussion with Trekyards. But definitely, we'll bring you guys in at some point. There's a couple of things for me. What I do like and appreciate with JJ Verse, and even Enterprise and things like that, is when they try to make it. They either update it in a way that maybe they wanted to do in the original series, or they make it so it at least feels like it would organically move into the next step. The ships that I see in Enterprise, while some of them I don't think are perfect, it does feel like they are the precursor to where they go with the ship. It feels like it's the next step, at least for me, right?
Cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't see that in Discovery. I don't see how the ship would naturally evolve to whatever the next step for the ship would be. Even if they tried to make a different classification or something, it just doesn't. They all don't tie in for me, you know. But again, the visuals in the 2009 don't bother me. Especially, it seems like it's a little bit more. I'll use the word sleek. I don't necessarily mean that, but it's again. I think they would have made that ship in TOS if they had had the technology at the time. Kind of like some things in Discovery that happen don't bother me as much because I do think they would have done it. Like the holographic technology, the communication holographic technology. Is completely inconsistent and doesn't go with it. But I know that in Deep Space Nine, they tried it and wanted to do it, right? And so I can kind of understand why they were trying to do it, but weren't able to get there. And that went off into a ramble. But I mean, that's just my opinion. The model, we were talking about this beforehand. The only thing I hate about it in the JJ verse is that it was basically, one scene, if that. And so with the model we got, even from Eagle Moss, doesn't have much to it because they didn't do much with it.
Yep.
And it's. I wish if they're going to make those assets, they do a little bit more with it. But I mean, let me throw it back to you guys. Do you see any? It doesn't even look like it to me. Does it? The Discovery version, does it even look like any ship that would be a part of the Klingon Empire to you guys? It just, I don't feel that. It does feel very alien.
Well, I mean, sorry, you go first. No, you go first. I'm gonna get the reference.
I was gonna say it could be something like a civilian fleet. Sure, fine. We don't know what the civilian ships would look like, but no, to me, what we see on screen for the Klingons, most of them anyway, feel more like they could be a Gorn ship or something. Totally alien.
Gorn, especially, actually.
Yeah. Something that we know about, but not really. It is in fact more alien to us than the Klingons. So I don't think they tie in with anything visually.
It is worth noting that we're probably before the KDF, the Klingon Defense Force, because they made it a big point of saying it's the clash of the houses. This is Civil War time, and so again, if the designs were a bit more designed to be Klingon as opposed to alien, then that would be really interesting to then have now the 10-year gap, KDF is formed, and they homogenize the designs to be the one core design. Obviously, that then design stays for the next 200 years, mostly because it was a physical miniature and they could only use a certain, it was cheap. There's a real practical reason for that. But these are pre-KDF, and again, these designers aren't thinking this way. We're thinking it for them, which is unfortunate. If any of us were designing it, this will all link in. If Doug, Rick, John does design, but he's hands behind his back. If they're allowed to design in the universe, they would make these things really fit in. So what does a pre-KDF ship look like? Well, if this was House Turok, their ship. So it's not a D7. It's just this is their one House class.
The problem with that, though, is in Enterprise we saw Klingon ships. We saw the Bird of Prey. We saw the Raptor, and they tied in visually.
Before the Civil War, though. Like, it goes from.
But you're not going to throw away those old ships, though. You're going to use those old ships.
Any house that in the Civil War, though.
So here's an interesting idea. Here's an interesting idea that could merge the two, because I think that's a good point, Commander Cockings, or Samuel. I mean, whatever we want to call you, Sir, the almighty Trekyards co-host.
Red the King.
What if? So this is a stretch, I'll admit, but what if we're looking at a dystopian Klingon Empire? So what happens is we see them united during Enterprise, and even then there start to be cracks or decay. They fall into a civil war. It's kind of like a Warhammer 40k thing. They fall into a civil war. All of these advanced or good ships are used to destroy each other. Houses are forced to make their own models. They've relied on the government for so long, they're really just throwing whatever they can together, and that's why we have what we have. Now, and I'll say this, because this was my thought at first. When I first saw the pictures before I watched the show, I didn't mind, because I thought we were only dealing with like a certain sect or a religious order.
Kuma ancient ships.
So I wouldn't mind that, because an order in itself, you can do whatever you want with that. So and this is a big stretch, a lot of people in chat are about to get mad, but we could say maybe we're looking at a dystopian Klingon Empire, and that's why the ships are so piecemealed.
That works for me. I mean, going back to what I said earlier, the fact that a lot of them could be civilian ships, a lot of the military assets might have been destroyed, so now they're using civilian ships that they've added weapons to. But at the same time, I would still expect to see one or two military ships surviving, or at least parts of them perhaps cobbled together into something similar. I mean, those designs worked, obviously. So to not see any represented is odd to me. But yeah, the dystopian thing does work, I guess, on some level. And it could incorporate more civilian ships that have just kind of been retrofitted with weapons and things. That would work.
But again, they didn't think this. They just said, let's design some alien ships. We're being forced to say, right, well, you've done a bad decision. Let's try and make that make sense. So I do want to specifically link, because we are reaching. It's fair to say we're reaching for anything to make our Trek sanity sane. But there are two ships that, if you put together, like I argue that the Discovery is the Alpha, the original, is very much not a D7 plus the Enterprise. It's a Warp Delta plus an NX-01, almost directly if you compare the shape. So it is a very natural evolution if you want to go that direction. Well, in the Klingon Enterprise fleet, there is a Klingon transport ship, which is it's not a point, but it is more a sort of a triangular shape, more organic. And the Raptors do have those big sweeping, that big nice neck. So if you were to combine the two and then stretch everything, you would get something vaguely akin to this new ship. But I mean, that's like
it's stretching.
Literally and figuratively. And if you then take, the pylons of the D5 and make those all the bottom pieces, like, you could really force it. It would look a lot more Klingon if you did that, because if you took the pieces. But there is one shape of transport ship which does still exist on that style. Or I guess you can maybe turn the Raptor into it, but again, it shows a lack of thought, but also a lot of originality. That's the thing. It's the irony is that also people then commented back saying, "Oh, they're aliens." It's like, they are aliens, except don't you remember the episode of TNG when the single race of aliens seeded life in a galaxy to all look humanoidy based on one genetic code? So no, they're all meant to be of a similar genetic code. That's why we look so similar. So no, they shouldn't be as alien-y. Delta Quadrant can be. Our quadrant can't be. So shush. Leave them be.
Well, the other thing to it too is this theory works for the Klingon Empire. At least it's stretched. You have to kind of be inebriated to a degree for it to work. But I mean, it still works. But it just, how incompetent is Starfleet to get beat by that too? By the way, how bad is their technology that this dystopian Klingon Empire that is using piecemealed civilian ships just wrecks them from one side to the other? Well, a cloak
makes a difference. I mean, as soon as you can do invisibility.
And we heard that a lot of this could actually tie in with the lack of honor that the Klingons have, where they'd follow a ship into starbase cloaked and just self-destruct. That's not really an honorable thing to do,
right.
But that's what we heard they were doing in Discovery, and it makes sense if their ships are underpowered. That's how you're going to win the war, by putting your ship on the line like that.
And the fact is, you can win every battle if you attack them and they're not expecting it. You have to have.
And if you expect not to come back from the battle, you can win every battle.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you've got a convoy of ships, but if you have to then, if they're in different parts of the quadrant. Well, if you manage to ambush each individual ship, which is on its way to a convergence point, by say 3 or 4 cloaked ships, if you've already got a fleet inside Federation space and can move them en masse, you could start destroying ship, and you start, doesn't matter. Numbers make a huge difference,
Sure.
And I'm sure they were ready for this war a little bit more than we were. So they say, let's double the amount of torpedoes. What?
Right.
Like by tomorrow? Okay. Now it's more powerful. Just. There are some very simple things to do to outgun a ship,
I will say, to be fair, all Klingon ships didn't get cloaking technology till mid to late war, and the only reason the Federation was winning was because of the Discovery's spore jump drive. At least that's what we're led to believe. In theory,
yeah, the war turned, and the Klingons won pretty much. Yeah, they decimated us.
But
that's what I mean. Like, as soon as they got the cloak,
yeah,
it was instant. Almost.
Right, but even with the spore drive, if they had they had the information on how to detect the cloak, because I was saying that was a part of the Gagarin, or Gagarin, however you say it. The destruction of the Gagarin, even the Discovery couldn't save it because of that tactic. I do like the idea, and then I guess we'd have to make L'Rell the smartest Klingon on the face of the planet to start combining.
Don't do that.
Well, that's the only way that we get back into the Klingon, because she was innovative enough to bring all the houses and all their technology to make.
Her and Tyler Vok, that has a much more balanced brain. He's got the honor of a Starfleet officer and the battle readiness of a Klingon, and he seems reasonably balanced by the end of it. I mean, him as a Starfleet officer, he was picking Burnham, he was picking the Federation honorably over just vengeance-y, stabby-killy murder.
Right.
You bring some of that saneness to this genocidal cult. It can help. Don't be terrorists, be Klingons.
Don't be terrorists. That's how they got their honor. Really, is Vok,
yep.
And that was his tagline. Whenever when anyone thought Tok, it was Vok, don't be terrorists. Be Klingons. That's just awesome.
I can see the propaganda posters now.
Let me ask you guys. So throughout the series of Discovery, the Klingons don't really have much honor to it. But I'll be curious in your opinion, and this is a little off base, but that's okay. People who watch it know. I don't mind that as much, given that in the original series, the episodes themselves, the series, not the movies, they had a lack of honor in some of those episodes, too. They really did come off as mustache-twirling villains at some points. So the lack of honor doesn't... Yeah, exactly. The lack of honor doesn't bother me as much. I'd be curious your thoughts on it, because a lot of people seem to get upset about that, too. But that's really a TOS movie and TNG... what's the word I'm looking for? Staple. It didn't seem to really be that staple till then. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just because it doesn't match our sense of honor as a culture doesn't mean their sense of honor is something completely different as well, is how I look at that. And it could be that because they were coming out of this dark time, Samuel and myself have talked about this, about the smooth heads and the ridged Klingons and the ones we see from Discovery, because we know that the genetic augment virus is what caused the smooth heads, so they exist as per Enterprise, and they've referenced Enterprise and Discovery. So, and it could be because we see those guys so prominently in TOS, they're coming back from this, so they do still have that sense of not quite where they need to be honorably, like the way they were back in their heyday, or the way they eventually get back to the TNG. They're still in that flux stage of getting back to the established empire with the Klingon Defense Force and all that. So it could be that that's the reason for it as well.
All right, we're going to start. Chad, if you guys want to ask any questions or anything you got to say, remember to do at Lore Reloaded or at Trekyards so that it looks nice and orange for all of us to see. So let's do this for a second, too, while we're waiting to see what people want to comment on, anything they want to add to it. But when it comes to the model itself, now, Captain Foley, you and me have it right now. What are your honest-to-God thoughts? Be completely clear, because that was the agreement. Eagle Moss absolutely knows that I just give it straight, and you guys do too. So what are your thoughts on the model itself, specifically?
I really love it, actually. There's nothing that is bad about it. I mean, it's got a nice tie-in with the Katinga markings on it, and just the overall edition. I don't know. It's just a fantastic representation of a Klingon ship to me. The model is fine. It's a good weight. I mean, the paint issues there aren't any that I can see. I mean, everything looks good. I don't know. I love it. It's awesome.
All right. The only thing, if I was, and I'm not...
My gun's bent.
Your gun's bent?
Oh, the one gun is bent, but other than that...
The only thing I would say is a lack of coloring to it, but I don't think that's necessarily on their side. I think that's just the the model was. What they've said is they make it exactly how they get it. I don't know. You guys are known for having all the models and stuff and being able to do all kinds of fancy stuff with it. And I didn't ask if I could ask this offline, but I guess we're going to find out if I can. Do you guys have the 2009 Klingon model available in your computers? Not to show right now, but do you have it? Is my question.
No comment, but shaking head with sad face. But mostly no comment. But I do know that it's good for what it is. But yeah, it was never given a full texture. And yeah, the Eaglemoss is certainly missing a few things, but they are missing a few things sometimes. Like if you notice all the especially the later JJ magazine, the Kelvin Universe magazine ships, like Beyond one, they only had the renders they were given, which was basically nothing, and so there's no back image because not given a top view, so that they were not given textured model, they were not given they were only given the raw and limitations of all that stuff. So this ship has the same thing. I'll be interested to see what the magazine has, if it has any renders at all, because this is now a movie from 9 years ago. They did CG 10 years ago. I mean, if they don't, ILM might not still be interested in helping at all, and CBS has only got what they were given. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so and that was going to be my question. Was there any more texture to it or anything that you knew? But yeah.
And the lack of color doesn't bother me, to be honest, because the D7s were just gray, and the Katingas were just a darker gray. Sure. And then you get into more of the greens as TNG, so I don't have a problem with that.
Sure. So taking a look at the chat, by the way, if you guys see anything you want to comment on, just interrupt me. It's just the way we go. Porrick, I used to know how to say his name, wants us to get into a fight, I think, because he knows my opinion on this. What are your views on Cisco using biogenic weapons on the Maquis? Really curious. He knows that I think that he should be in a maximal jail cell for the rest of his life. That's why he's asking me. He's hoping that you guys disagree so that we can fight over it. That's exactly what that is. I see right through you, Maxwell. Don't even ask. But what are y'all's thoughts? He should be in a maximum prison cell for the rest of his life. I mean, we'd be under Dominion. The Alpha Quadrant would be under Dominion control at this point. I get that, but still, just looking at that specific action.
Sure. Yeah, he should have probably lost his commission. I don't know about. Oh man, don't do that to me.
Whatever you say, I'm going to respond. You really think that that's all he should have got for using a biogenic weapon?
How many people did he kill, or was it stopped? I can't remember the episode.
He didn't kill anybody. No, apparently nobody. Everybody got away. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. Okay, so it was intention more than actual death caused sort of thing.
It was, his hand.
Obviously he thought it was morally right. After we watched the episode, I don't think it's morally right, but maybe he could convince an admiral to agree. I think that's more of a thing you can justify against the large generic threat, but by anything that causes suffering, a torpedo on a ship, then boom. Obviously, that's every day. How many Cardassians do they kill in the war? Sure. And not think twice. But if that's an instant explosion. But biogenics is a little bit different. So, I mean, yeah, they all did bad things. Yeah. I mean, it's just. But then if ever, it's not justifiable. No.
I'm not going to disagree with you, Low Reloaded. So put it that way.
We're not for genocide here on Trekyards. Sorry.
Don't support genocide.
There is one thing I want to address here. Nathan Norman said maybe Discovery Klingons are overcompensating for the loss of the ridges by going to a point where they look more like orcs as a callback to their past. We've talked about that. It could be that that's the case, or it could be that they tried to genetically manipulate the augment virus reverse, and it backfired and went too far, and they kind of got mutated. And that spread. So we've talked about that in a few. There's 2 videos we did where we talked about the Klingons.
That's now a 3-caste system with either the scientists or the most rich, whatever. They wanted to be the most Klingonly pure, and they became ultra, prehistoric Klingon look, pre-Kalos, because we know exactly what he looked like, because of the canon. And then because that, they looked down upon the smoothheads. Normal Klingons, just the everyday, who cares, normal people, and then. As Tyler Vaught comes in as the representative of the human Klingon hybrid, to stick up for human-looking Klingon rights, and then through the next through the next decade, they then become the primary military force because he fights for them, and then over the next 100 years, they become the default as genetic purity and the classics recombobulate, and we get a nice standard Klingon race. So Discovery Season 2, best thing to do for them is to show us all 3 types of Klingons, and we can make it something really interesting. then you can justify the weird racial stuff, and it's like, yes, it's a 3-caste system, and it'd be really interesting.
If you guys are watching this video on demand, I'll get those 2 specific video links from them, and they'll be in the description for those who are interested. Take a look at it. We'll do a few more, and then we'll be on our way. So we just got one from Norman, so I won't read him again. And some of them aren't D7 related, but still, do you guys think, I know you kind of mentioned this beforehand, do you think there's going to be a 4th movie in the JJ verse? I think I heard, this could be wrong, that Tarantino, either it was going to happen with Tarantino, or Tarantino was going to put it in the JJ verse.
I've heard rumors there's 2 Star Trek movies coming out now, the Star Trek 4 and a Tarantino one, which I don't buy at all. So,
sure.
Safest bet for them is to keep doing alternate universes. Then they can just milk the shit out of it. They shouldn't, but we had 50 years of Prime Trek, and sort of, I guess, wrote themselves into a corner that no one seems to be smart enough to use properly right now. I want to see a 2009 continuation on the same quality that Beyond was, just with a slightly more grand scale. I mean, there was obviously the Klingon War leading up to that was reasonably well set up. And if they do a time gap to justify them looking older, that'd be interesting. Change uniforms to a Wrath of Khan version, that'd be kind of fun. A red version, refit the ship again. I mean, yeah, that crew did a better job with a better script with 3. And so if that same team comes back with Justin Lin did a really excellent job, and there's some flaws in that movie, but actually respects canon and still being in JJ verse, and that's a good balance there. And another movie, Quentin Tarantino, as long as it's not canon, prime canon, he can do whatever the hell he wants, and I would happily watch, something, I guess, X-rated and shooty, blood gore. JJ, Roddenberry would spin his grave and but they've been doing that for a while.
Yeah.
So
Discovery's opened that up. I honestly, if Tarantino did Tarantino and we saw what I would expect when I see a Tarantino film, I would just say, well, Discovery did it first. He may have amped it up, but Discovery did it first.
But he's cleverer, though. Discovery was not clever.
Sure.
You imagine a Pulp Fiction of the Star Trek universe, 4 concurrent stories from 4 perspectives, and they all meet up. He could do if he's also having to write it and stuff, that could be a truly clever film that we've not seen before. We've only ever seen action movies. I'd love to see him do one without any baddie, without any, maybe we see both perspectives completely, a la Star Trek 4 a bit more, or 3, whichever one had Christopher Lloyd, and a bit more of the perspective, so you're not as 2D. Hey, a good director is worth having.
Right.
I'd love to see it, and he could rally a good budget. And if you're actually a Star Trek fan, proper Star Trek fan that really gets it like Simon Pegg, then yeah, give him a shot. Just don't make it prime canon. Don't give him the ability to retcon anything anywhere. So, oh look, the galaxy is now in the past, and it's now this Enterprise, and why is it now 8,000 meters, and why has it now got 45 torpedo launchers, and why is it now purple? Oh my god! Don't do that. No. But or a Mirror Universe movie. That'd be an obvious thing. TNG Mirror Universe movie with him redesigning stuff based on Discovery a bit.
Or a Terran Empire. Cool. What about
so
that would be good.
Tarantino
Terran Empire, and then that almost justifies the R rating itself. I would have a much better time with a Terran Empire R rated. So let me
make it clever, so it's not just maniacal mustache twirlers.
Right.
Make it be Hans Gruber versus the Emperor. Star Wars, like that sort of really,
Or the fallout from Georgiou. It starts right after Georgiou is transported back to Discovery, and then we just see Terran Empire Civil War. That'd be very interesting too. So we'll do this, and then we'll probably towards the end. And I lost what exactly it was, but a lot of people keep wondering if they're going to bring the Romulans in, what the Romulan ships would look like. Now, my timeline could be off on this, but I don't think they see hide nor hair of the Romulans until into the original series. So unless they're going to do something stupid like they did let's make this classified, let's make the Mirror Universe classified so we can try to justify how Kirk doesn't know about it type thing where they classify it. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think we're going to see Romulans. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, we've heard that Romulan is this was stated on After Trek, that Romulan is a dirty word in the writer's room. Okay. They can't use it, then they're not going to. But
which is weird, because they're meant to be a Romulan tie Brian Fuller's promoting that'd be a thing. It's like, yeah, it wasn't at all. So that was a radical restructuring of the show. I mean, if they do them, they'll do them wrong. Unfortunately, as I've said, as I'm starting to say, they've lost the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. You know, we waited even up until episode 9. I was saying, right, well, we've got a couple more. They can. You know, Brian Fuller has been long left. His designs were able to be thrown out. That's why we got cylindrical nacelles on the colony. It's the only reason. You know, let's see if they can fix it by the end. Nope, not really. Better episodes, but the last one was weird. But yeah, they've lost the benefit of the doubt. They've now lost the ability. They've not proven to us they can do Trek properly in terms of the Trek of it. So if they did Romulans, they'll do ships that don't look, or even there'll be literal birds, like really over the top, as the the bird of prey for Klingons are. It's like, wow, it looks like a bird. It's like, yeah, the bird of prey is a class name, not a literal bird. Why would it be a literal bird? So, you know what I mean? You take things too far. So I think we'll probably will. I mean, you can easily say Section 31 are dealing with them. We know that's going to be a thing thanks to the trailer or the teaser. That'd be an obvious one. All you have to do is destroy the ship that is the hero Romulan ship at the end, and then boom, no ties back to Romulus if they don't get through. Or Discovery, you know, all its data banks get wiped and their sworn secrets. I mean, you can easily retcon it in if they feel like that's the story they want to tell. I mean, they're good at shoehorning bad things, and again, they'll do whatever they want.
Good at shoehorning bad. They say they're going to fix it. I don't trust them. I mean, I'm not going to get too much into it, especially since I know you guys are have really good relationship. They weren't being truthful, is what I'll say, and that's me being generous. So untruthful. But anyway, yeah, I mean, again, it would. I don't mind seeing the Romulans. It just can't happen during this era unless they again, like everything that you just said. Not to rehash on that.
They could deal with the Klingons. We could just see them just dealing with the Rel.
Right.
There's no reason for that not to be. And then, because I said this right from the start. We've got to fix the whole Klingon cloak. I mean, yes, it's an invisibility screen. But really, guys, what an absolutely ridiculous thing to do, unless you then have a Romulan show up and say, you know, we gave you that cloak for a reason, and you let them discover a way of defeating it within, 6 months? We're not trusting you again. You know, you could retcon it a little bit to make more sense.
That would tie in with the later
with the Duras
alliance between the Klingons and the Romulans during 2267.
Yeah. I mean, just make the new Emperor Elector Duras. You know, wouldn't that be a great reference? You know, the Rel's first prime below thing is Duras. We're like, well, this is going to be a thing. They've always been king of the Romulans. Let's set that back in further, and be interesting.
Let me ask you guys this, because I had an interesting, because I was doing I'm doing a breakdown on Friday of the D7, and I was looking at the invisibility screen stuff, and I was looking at how the Klingons got it. To my understanding, a lot of it comes from a book and is inference that there was a trading of technology, D7s for cloaking devices. Is it possible that the Klingons actually had cloaking technology beforehand? Would it make more sense that they'd had it? However, during Discovery, they figured out how to beat it, and so the Romulans showed them how to improve the technology. So they didn't have the cloaking technology; they just helped them improve it. What are your thoughts on that? It would make it make sense at that point.
It's a possibility, I suppose. I mean, the reason for the alliance was initially that the Romulans developed a better cloak, but they needed a more stable power supply, which the D7s offered. So they made a deal with the Klingons to get some D7s, and in exchange they gave them some older cloaks because they didn't tell them about the latest cloak that they had. Here you go. But I mean, that could work. The cloaking screens are just not as advanced nearly as a Romulan cloak. That would make sense. And they just came in and tried to help them improve it as part of the agreement. Yeah,
this is the only way it really can make any kind. It's silly. Okay, so we're going.
The only thing I buy is that Takuvama made a deal with the Romulans, got a cloak for his ship, and after he was killed, the other Klingon dude Cole just took it and used it, and the Romulans got a bit pissed.
Right.
You know, they did not design Klingon cloaks first. I absolutely say they were the first. Romulans were the first cloak species, and the Sulabans got the cloak from the future, and the future got them because they were advanced Romulan cloaks.
Right.
It's the lovely little symmetry, but the Romulans even had them before them in the Suleiman timeline. So to stick with that. As soon as you start devaluing the cloak, it was a thing, and you've already ruined it a bit.
Right.
Yeah,
just a bit. Let's try and fix that, guys.
No, I didn't hate your backstory. I didn't hate your thoughts on it too. I was just curious when it came to that, because when I was looking at it, that was the only thing I could think of, because I didn't even consider the Romulans may have given to him beforehand, which is a good idea. So. All right, so I think that's where we're going to end it here, guys. If you do like this, let me know in the comments. Let us know on Twitter, and go over to the Trekyards channel. Let them know that you enjoy the conversations. The more you guys tell us you like this, the more we'll do shows. Maybe even try to do something consistently. We'll end it with you guys giving your general sign-outs, and then we will call it a day. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Don't forget to comment, subscribe. Go over to Trekyards. Subscribe to them, too. If you're not subscribed to them, I'm not sure how that works, given that they're the Trek channel. But if you're not, definitely go over there and check it out. So we'll go with Commander Cockings, then Captain Foley, and then we're out.
And this is Commander Cockings. That's what I normally do.
Well, I'm Captain Foley. See you guys later.
Bye, guys.